Humanity had long since shed the shackles of Earth's gravity. No longer confined to its surface, no longer tethered to its fragile ecosystems, humanity had cast its gaze upward, out into the stars. The first successful colony on Mars had been just the beginning. The Moon, the asteroid belt, distant moons of Saturn, these had all become the proving grounds for humanity's insatiable drive to expand, to claim, and to thrive. But as humanity ventured further into the cosmic expanse, it became clear that humanity was not alone, and some of the things that shared the stars with them were not nearly as friendly as they had hoped. Among the stars, orbiting a distant moon near the asteroid belt, sat the Acheron, a massive human research station, its sleek silver surface reflecting the distant light of distant suns. On board, the world seemed calm, at least to the casual observer. The hum of machinery, the soft whir of automated systems, and the quiet conversations of the crew were the sounds of ordinary life in space. But this peace was not to last. Commander Erica Miller stood in the observation deck of the station, her hands resting lightly against the cool glass, staring out into the vastness of space. Her face, framed by the shadows of her dark hair, was set in concentration. The stars outside blinked like distant embers, but it was the dark void between them that caught her attention. "We're alone out here, aren't we?" The voice of Dr. Hugo Alvarez, the station's chief scientist, broke through her thoughts. He stepped into the observation deck, his voice carrying an edge of unease. "Isn't that what we've always wanted?" Erica replied, not turning to look at him. "To be alone, to make our own destiny out here." "Yes," Hugo said. But there was something in his tone, something tight in his chest. "But alone doesn't always mean safe." She turned slowly to face him, sensing the tension in the air. "What do you mean?" Hugo's expression darkened, and he walked to the data console in the corner, his fingers moving quickly across the keys. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of encrypted signals, unusual patterns that had started appearing in the last few days. A strange anomaly, one that none of their algorithms could account for. "We've been receiving strange transmissions, Commander," Hugo said, the words hanging heavy in the air. "They're not from any known source. They're too structured to be random, too deliberate." "Deliberate?" Erica's pulse quickened. "Who's sending them?" "That's just it," Hugo said, glancing over at her, his eyes wide. "I don't know. We've tried to trace the signal, but it doesn't match anything in our database. It's as if they've been carefully hiding their origin." Erica frowned. Could it be an alien race? The words felt foreign on her tongue, as if testing them would somehow make them real. The idea of aliens had been brushed aside by most of humanity's elite, seen as a relic of outdated conspiracy theories. Yet here she was, facing the impossible. Hugo nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the screen as he typed in more commands. "It could be, but I don't think it's just a random encounter. I think they know we're here." For a moment, Erica was silent, the weight of his words pressed down on her chest. Humanity had spent centuries trying to stretch its fingers out to the stars, always with the assumption that if other civilizations existed, they would be as eager to make contact as humanity was. But this was different. There was something about these signals that felt wrong. "How long have they been sending these?" she asked. "About 2 weeks," Hugo replied, "but only in the last few days has the frequency increased. Whoever or whatever is out there, they're getting closer." Erica turned back to the viewport, her eyes narrowing. The darkness of space beyond seemed almost suffocating now, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting. She didn't need to ask what Hugo's fears were. The same thought echoed in both of their minds. The alien species that might be reaching out to them wasn't here to welcome them, not to exchange knowledge or trade resources. No, they had come for something else, something much darker. And just as the thought crossed her mind, the station's alarms blared to life, a piercing sound that shattered the tension. The deck lights flashed red. "Incoming object detected," the computer voice announced, cold and mechanical. Unidentified ship, rapid approach. Erica's stomach twisted. Shut down the comms, lock all systems. I want to know everything about that ship now. Her voice was calm, but inside her pulse raced. She had always imagined that first contact would be awe-inspiring, a moment of wonder and curiosity. But this felt like the beginning of something far worse. Humanity had long since shed the shackles of Earth's gravity. No longer confined to its surface, no longer tethered to its fragile ecosystems, humanity had cast its gaze upward, out into the stars. The first successful colony on Mars had been just the beginning. The Moon, the asteroid belt, distant moons of Saturn. These had all become the proving grounds for humanity's insatiable drive to expand, to claim, and to thrive. But as humanity ventured further into the cosmic expanse, it became clear that humanity was not alone, and some of the things that shared the stars with them were not nearly as friendly as they had hoped. Among the stars, orbiting a distant moon near the asteroid belt, sat the Acheron, a massive human research station, its sleek silver surface, reflecting the distant light of distant suns. On board, the world seemed calm, at least to the casual observer. The hum of machinery, the soft whir of automated systems, and the quiet conversations of the crew were the sounds of ordinary life in space. But this peace was not to last. Commander Erica Miller stood in the observation deck of the station, her hands resting lightly against the cool glass, staring out into the vastness of space. Her face, framed by the shadows of her dark hair, was set in concentration. The stars outside blinked like distant embers, but it was the dark void between them that caught her attention. We're alone out here, aren't we? The voice of Dr. Hugo Alvarez, the station's chief scientist, broke through her thoughts. He stepped into the observation deck, his voice carrying an edge of unease. Isn't that what we've always wanted? Erica replied, not turning to look at him. To be alone, to make our own destiny out here. Yes, Hugo said, but there was something in his tone, something tight in his chest. But alone doesn't always mean safe. She turned slowly to face him, sensing the tension in the air. What do you mean? Hugo's expression darkened and he walked to the data console in the corner, his fingers moving quickly across the keys. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of encrypted signals, unusual patterns that had started appearing in the last few days. A strange anomaly, one that none of their algorithms could account for. We've been receiving strange transmissions, Commander, Hugo said, the words hanging heavy in the air. They're not from any known source. They're too structured to be random, too deliberate. Deliberate? Erica's pulse quickened. Who's sending them? That's just it, Hugo said, glancing over at her, his eyes wide. I don't know. We've tried to trace the signal, but it doesn't match anything in our database. It's as if they've been carefully hiding their origin. Erica frowned. Could it be an alien race? The words felt foreign on her tongue, as if testing them would somehow make them real. The idea of aliens had been brushed aside by most of humanity's elite, seen as a relic of outdated conspiracy theories. Yet here she was, facing the impossible. Hugo nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the screen as he typed in more commands. It could be, but I don't think it's just a random encounter. I think they know we're here. For a moment, Erica was silent, the weight of his words pressed down on her chest. Humanity had spent centuries trying to stretch its fingers out to the stars, always with the assumption that if other civilizations existed, they would be as eager to make contact as humanity was. But this was different. There was something about these signals that felt wrong. How long have they been sending these, she asked. About 2 weeks, Hugo replied. But only in the last few days has the frequency increased. Whoever or whatever is out there, they're getting closer. Erica turned back to the viewport, her eyes narrowing. The darkness of space beyond seemed almost suffocating now, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting. She didn't need to ask what Hugo's fears were. The same thought echoed in both of their minds. The alien species that might be reaching out to them wasn't here to welcome them. not to exchange knowledge or trade resources. No, they had come for something else, something much darker. And just as the thought crossed her mind, the station's alarms blared to life, a piercing sound that shattered the tension. The deck lights flashed red. Incoming object detected. The computer voice announced, cold and mechanical. Unidentified ship, rapid approach. Erica's stomach twisted. Shut down the comms, lock all systems. I want to know everything about that ship now. Her voice was calm, but inside her pulse raced. She had always imagined that first contact would be awe-inspiring, a moment of wonder and curiosity. But this felt like the beginning of something far worse. The screen blinked to life with more data. The ship was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Its shape was sleek, almost organic, as though it had been grown rather than built. It moved in a way that defied the normal patterns of physics. Too fluid, too deliberate. For a moment, the room was silent as the crew of the Acheron stared at the screen. The ship hovered in the distance, its dark silhouette against the backdrop of stars. And for the first time in decades, Erica Miller felt the cold grip of terror wrap around her heart. It wasn't just the ship. It was the realization that the signals, the strange transmissions, were not a warning. They were a trap. They had come for resources. And now they were trapped in humanity's gravity. The ship was closer now, its form unmistakable. A sleek, obsidian hull that shimmered under the weak light of distant stars, as if it were alive, pulsing with a dark energy. Every instinct in Erica Miller's gut screamed that this was no ordinary visitor. The sheer impossibility of the situation pressed against her chest like a vice. The Acheron was built to withstand any number of cosmic threats: asteroid collisions, solar flares, the occasional rogue black hole. But nothing in the training manuals had prepared her for this. "Report," Erica snapped, her voice cutting through the panic that had begun to rise in the command room. The station had gone into full lockdown mode, every crew member scrambling to their stations as the unidentified ship drew nearer. Dr. Hugo Alvarez was at the data console, his hands flying over the keys as he attempted to intercept and decode the alien signal. The fear was obvious on his face, his normally steady hands betraying the weight of the unknown. "The ship's not transmitting any clear signals, Commander. It's blocking us out somehow, like it's scrambling our tech." "Doesn't matter," Erica replied, her voice colder now. "We have to establish contact. We need to know who or what we're dealing with before they make the next move." A tense silence fell over the room as the crew worked in a flurry of frantic motions. They had been expecting alien contact, even preparing for it in some ways, but not like this. Not a silent, uninvited intrusion. This was the kind of first contact they had hoped to avoid, the kind that wasn't born of diplomacy or mutual curiosity, but of something darker, more primal. A high-pitched shriek echoed through the station as one of the external sensors spiked. The ship had launched something. No, not something, a fleet. The initial ship had unleashed dozens of smaller craft, each one darting through space toward Acheron like predatory birds circling their prey. "Commander, they're not just here to talk," Hugo said, his voice breaking with disbelief. "These ships, they look like drones, but they're all heading straight for us." Erica's heart sank. They hadn't even attempted to communicate. They were coming for a fight. "Shut down all non-essential systems," she ordered, her mind racing. "Engage defense protocols. We don't know what we're dealing with yet, but we need to be ready for anything." The crew scrambled, flicking switches and punching in commands to lock down the station's defenses. The Acheron wasn't built for combat, not by any stretch. It was a research station, not a warship. But humanity had learned from its early mistakes. Defense measures, shields, automated weapons systems, and communication jammers were integrated into every vessel just in case. As the alien ships approached, something shifted in the air. There was a weight to the moment, something that felt wrong. The Acheron shuddered violently as if the ship itself was buckling under the gravity of the situation. Erica felt it in her bones. A deep, insistent pull. "What's happening?" Hugo asked, eyes wide with concern as the station's systems flickered. We're Being pulled? Erica said slowly, her voice faltering. The gravitational pull they had been relying on to keep their orbit stable was now rapidly increasing. They were moving downward, caught in something they couldn't explain. A low rumble reverberated through the station's hull, the sound of gravity itself twisting and compressing. The Acheron was now trapped in the invisible grasp of the alien fleet's power. Whatever technology they had, whatever they were, this was not something humanity had prepared for. Prepare for impact, Erica barked. Get to the escape pods now. But it was too late. Before anyone could react, the force of the pull became unbearable. The station lurched violently, alarms blaring across every deck as the Acheron was dragged closer to the center of the anomaly. The ship's orbit was spiraling out of control. In the command room, Erica gripped the edge of the table, bracing herself against the violent tremors. A deep, thrumming hum began to fill the room, as if the universe itself was trembling. Her thoughts scattered, her mind racing for solutions she didn't have. The emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie, red glow over the room. Through the observation window, the alien ships were visible now, more distinct against the black void. They hung in the vastness like malevolent, watchful eyes. "Commander," Hugo said, his voice tinged with panic. "I've never seen anything like this before. It's like they're using gravity against us." Before Erica could respond, a new voice echoed through the command center, one that did not belong to any crew member. The station's intercom crackled to life, a garbled series of clicks and hisses. Then, impossibly, a voice emerged from the static. It was smooth, resonant, and alien. "Human, we know you hear us. We are here for your resources. You will comply." The words hit Erica like a slap, cold, mechanical, but unmistakable in their intent. "They know everything," Hugo muttered, his face pale. "The signals. This is them. The ones we've been receiving." Erica's hand shot out, slamming the intercom button. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" The voice on the other end responded with terrifying calmness. "We are the Etherians, and we have come to claim what you cannot protect." A series of low, rumbling sounds echoed through the station, a warning more than a promise. The alien ship and its drones were drawing closer, the gravitational anomaly pulling harder still, a force that was now too strong for even the Acheron's engines to overcome. For a moment, Erica was silent, her mind racing. She knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a rescue mission. This wasn't a peaceful exchange of knowledge. These beings had come to take, to conquer, and to subjugate. "We can't survive this," Hugo whispered, fear clawing at his throat. "We will survive this," Erica said, her voice sharp, her resolve hardening. "We'll find a way. I won't let humanity fall." The intercom crackled again, this time with a sharp, almost mocking tone. "You will make your choice, human. Your gravity holds you, but it also binds you. You are already caught." The transmission cut off. In the eerie silence that followed, Erica could almost hear the pulse of the Acheron systems, struggling against the inevitable. But one thing was clear now. Humanity was not the one in control anymore. The station groaned as it was pulled closer to the gravitational anomaly. Time was running out. The crew scrambled to enact emergency measures, but there was nothing they could do. The alien ships were in complete control. Erica Miller's thoughts raced, her every instinct telling her that this wasn't just about survival. There was something more at stake here, something greater than any of them had realized. The Acheron was caught. But the real question was, what would humanity choose to do now that they were face to face with an overwhelming force, and would the choices they made haunt them forever? The Acheron had become a warship by necessity. As the alien vessels closed in, their vast and silent fleet dwarfed the research station, and the once pristine halls of the Acheron now rang with urgency. The crew of the station was in disarray, panic and confusion spreading as the realization of their vulnerability settled over them. The gravitational anomaly tugged at them relentlessly, warping space around the station as it neared the center. Everything had begun to feel like a bad dream, a dream in which they were powerless to wake up from. Erica Miller stood in the command center, her mind sharp, but her heart heavy with doubt. The alien ships had yet to make any further move, but their silence was more ominous than any weapon. "We need a plan," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Hugo Alvarez, still at the data console, looked up, his face drawn and pale. He had spent the past several hours trying to analyze the alien technology, trying to decipher their methods. But everything he had learned only deepened the mystery. "I've never seen anything like this," he muttered, his voice edged with frustration. "They're controlling gravity, Commander, manipulating it at will, and we're stuck in their gravitational field. Our systems are fried, we can't move, we can't escape, and we can't communicate with anyone outside." Erica clenched her fists, her mind working quickly. The longer they stayed in this compromised position, the more the alien fleet could tighten their grip, driving them closer to whatever their true intentions were. She couldn't afford to wait for them to make the first move. "Have we been able to send any messages out? Anything to warn Earth or the other colonies?" she asked. "We've tried," Hugo replied, shaking his head. "The transmissions are being blocked. Every time we attempt to send a signal, it gets scrambled. They know what we're doing before we even try." Erica's stomach tightened. "So we're completely cut off. No way to get help." "We're on our own," Hugo said, his voice bitter with helplessness. Suddenly, the station's alert system chimed, a high-pitched sound that drew every eye in the room. The view screen flashed to life, showing the silhouettes of the alien ships, now surrounding them from every angle. The Acheron was caught in a net, the pull of the anomaly intensifying with each passing moment. "Brace yourselves," Erica ordered, her voice steady. "They're preparing to board." Hugo looked at her in disbelief. "What? But they haven't fired on us yet." "They don't need to," she interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "They've already shown us they can control the environment. We don't need to wait for them to attack, we need to take the initiative. It's our only chance." But as she spoke, something strange happened. The alien fleet shifted. One of the smaller ships, the one closest to the Acheron, began to move toward them, its sleek surface cutting through space like a shadow. And as it moved, Erica felt a deep, almost unsettling vibration through the station. It was as if the Acheron itself were responding, a subtle shift in its internal systems. "Commander," Hugo said urgently, "their ship is opening a port." The view screen zoomed in, and to Erica's horror, she saw that the alien ship was indeed preparing for docking. But this was no traditional airlock. The alien craft was using its gravity manipulation to literally fold space around them, creating an unnatural gateway that distorted the space between the two ships. "They're going to board us directly," Erica said, her heart racing. She turned toward the crew. "Prepare for contact. We don't know what we're facing, but we can't afford to be unprepared." As the air grew heavier with the impending threat, the crew scrambled into action. Erica felt the weight of their fear, their uncertainty. But there was no time to second guess. The moment of reckoning had arrived. The alien boarding ships slid effortlessly into place against the hull of the Acheron, their technology humming in eerie harmony with the station's failing systems. Every wall of the command center vibrated as if the very ship itself were under siege. The sound was oppressive, as though the station was being crushed under the weight of an invisible hand. Erica stood, staring at the viewport, her mind racing. What kind of creatures would have this kind of power? What did they want with humanity, with Earth? The crew had equipped themselves with the few weapons available to them: laser rifles, handguns, improvised explosives. There was no real strategy, beyond survival. No way to match the might of their invaders. This was going to be a fight for their lives and for the future of humanity. Hugo, standing beside her, caught her gaze. "We need to buy time. We have to find a way to sever their hold on us, or we're as good as dead." Erica nodded. She'd been thinking the same thing. "I agree. We need to figure out what's powering their gravity manipulation. It's not just the ships, it's affecting the entire station." But before they could act, the intercom buzzed to life again, sending a chill down Erica's spine. This time the alien voice was different. Calm, almost sympathetic. Human. You are wasting your time. Your defenses are futile, your technology primitive. We control your station now. But know this, your compliance will ensure your survival. Resist and there will be no mercy. Erica felt a surge of anger. The voice was dispassionate, cold, and utterly devoid of any hint of negotiation. But that didn't matter. If they weren't going to negotiate, if they were going to treat humanity like insects to be crushed, then the time for diplomacy was over. We'll never comply, Erica muttered under her breath. Not to them. Minutes later, the alien boarding craft made contact, and a loud hiss echoed through the station as the entry port opened. Through the mist of pressurized air, Erica could make out the shapes of the aliens. Tall, elongated. Their bodies seemed to shimmer with an unnatural fluidity, as though their forms were not fully bound by the same laws of physics that constrained humanity. The moment they stepped onto the Acheron, a hush fell over the crew. Their eyes locked onto the invaders who moved with eerie precision. They didn't speak, didn't need to. Their very presence exuded an almost overwhelming sense of superiority. "We'll take them," Erica said softly, not because she believed they could win, but because she had no choice. The fight had already begun. The first shots were fired, not from the crew but from the aliens themselves. Their weapons didn't shoot bullets or plasma. They fired beams of dark energy, cutting through the walls like a hot knife through butte. "Fire everywhere." Hugo's voice crackled through the comms, his words tinged with panic. "The drones are deploying and there's nothing we can do." The crew had been doing their best to resist, but with every passing minute their resources dwindled. The alien ships had already begun to disassemble parts of the Acheron, the engines, the communication relays, even the life support systems. Soon there would be nothing left, but Erica wasn't going to let it end like this. They could fight back, they had to. "Focus on their tech," Erica ordered, her voice sharp despite the fear gnawing at her. "Find a way to disable their gravity generators. If we can break their hold on us, we can fight them on our terms." "We can't get close enough to their ships," Hugo replied, frustration coloring his voice. "We don't have the time to do anything. They'll kill us all before we even reach the docking bay." Erica's eyes darted around the shattered command center. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. The smell of burning electronics filled the air. In the midst of the chaos, one thought burned bright in her mind. There had to be a way, there was always a way. "Activate the auxiliary power systems," she said suddenly, as the spark of an idea ignited in her brain. "Redirect all non-essential energy to the gravity systems. We need to overload them." The idea was desperate. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot they had left. Hugo hesitated for only a moment before answering. "You're asking for a chain reaction. If we're not careful, we could tear the whole station apart. Then we die trying," Erica snapped. "Do it." With a final, resigned sigh, Hugo complied. The station trembled once more as auxiliary power began to hum to life, flowing through the Acheron's damaged systems. Sparks flew from broken terminals, the station creaking under the strain, but Erica held her ground, her mind focusing on the one thing that mattered now: survival. Outside the command room, the alien forces were still advancing. The aliens had split into smaller groups, their weapons discharging in short bursts of energy that left behind holes of burned metal. They were relentless in their pursuit, cutting down any resistance with terrifying precision. But even now, as the station groaned under the weight of their presence, Erica could feel the tension beginning to shift. The gravitational pull, the one that had been working against them, was starting to waver. "Commander, it's working," Hugo said, his voice thin with relief. "The gravity generators are overloading. The pull is weakening." Erica allowed herself a brief moment of triumph. They had found a crack in the armor, but it wasn't over yet. The aliens were still advancing. And if they didn't act quickly, the Acheron would be nothing more than a floating husk, its crew dead and its resources claimed. "All crew members, listen up," Erica shouted over the intercom, her voice cracking with urgency. "We need to buy ourselves more time. Hold the line, we're not giving up. Not now, not ever." The crew responded with a unified shout, their resolve hardening. They had no choice but to fight. And though they were outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered, they were human. And that meant something. Erica grabbed her weapon and motioned for Hugo to follow. "We're going to the docking bay. It's the only place where we can have a fighting chance." They ran through the twisting, war-torn hallways of the station, the sounds of distant explosions shaking the very walls around them. Behind them, the alien forces closed in, their presence like a shadow that darkened every corridor. But Erica didn't falter. She couldn't. As they reached the docking bay, Erica's heart pounded in her ears. The bay doors were already open, and the alien ships had begun to unload their forces, stepping into the bay with terrifying grace. Their technology, their sheer power was on full display. These were not just invaders, they were conquerors. "We're not going to let this station fall without a fight," Erica muttered, her eyes narrowing as the first alien soldiers appeared in the entryway. In that moment, everything seemed to slow. The noise, the chaos, the fear. It all faded into the background as Erica focused on the task at hand. The station was shaking violently now, its structural integrity starting to fail, but the gravity was weakening. The anomaly that had ensnared them was faltering. Erica raised her weapon, her hand steady despite the terror that churned in her stomach. She fired. The blast struck the nearest alien in the chest, sending it crashing into the wall with a sickening thud. But before she could celebrate, another alien appeared, its weapon aimed directly at her. A blur of motion, and Hugo was there, knocking her to the ground, just as the blast of energy tore through the space she had been standing. The shockwave slammed into her, sending her sprawling across the cold floor of the docking bay. "Are you all right?" Hugo's voice came from above her as he helped her to her feet. His face grim. Erica nodded. "We need to finish this now." As the crew fought desperately to hold off the invaders, Erica's mind raced. The gravity field had been weakened, but it wasn't enough. She needed more. She needed a way to reverse the flow, to use the gravity itself as a weapon. And then, as the aliens continued their advance, it hit her, the anomaly itself. The central node controlling the gravitational distortion was located beneath them. If they could reach it, if they could overload it, they could turn the tide. "Get to the central node," Erica shouted, rallying the remaining crew. "We overload it now, and we turn the gravity against them." But the path to the node was not going to be easy. The aliens, realizing their vulnerability, redoubled their efforts, pushing forward with deadly force. The crew fought valiantly, but there were only so many of them, and so many of the aliens. "Go!" Erica shouted to Hugo as she held off an advancing alien, her rifle rattling with bursts of energy. "I'll cover you." Hugo hesitated, but Erica's determined gaze left no room for argument. He turned and ran, darting through the chaos toward the control room at the heart of the station. The final battle had begun, and Erica Miller was determined that humanity wouldn't go down without taking a few of their invaders with them. The Acheron groaned under the pressure, the very foundations of the station straining as Erica pushed herself forward. It was time to finish this. The Acheron was a ship on the brink of collapse. The central systems were all but fried, the station's once pristine corridors now a maze of fire and twisted metal. But through it all, Erica Miller had not wavered. Her feet pounded against the metal floors as she sprinted toward the control room where Hugo had already breached the security doors. Behind her, the sounds of battle raged. The shriek of alien weaponry, the roar of explosions, the desperate shouts of her crew. It was all a blur now. The noise was deafening, the chaos unrelenting. And yet, the one thing that kept Erica moving forward was the single thread of hope that remained. The central node. Hugo had reached it. She could see the glow of its interface from the hallway as she entered the control room, and for a moment everything seemed to pause. The gravity anomaly had been weakening steadily, and now it was nearly gone. But the aliens hadn't stopped. They were still pushing forward, still determined to take the station by force. "You're close," Erica called, breathless as she reached Hugo's side. His face was streaked with sweat and blood, but his eyes were focused. "I can feel the flow," Hugo said, his fingers flying over the damaged controls. If I can reroute the power just a little more, we can reverse it. We can use the gravity against them. The room shook again as another blast from the alien forces hit the station's outer hull. But Erica didn't flinch. There was no more room for fear, no more time for hesitation. The final push had begun. We have one shot at this, Hugo. Make it count. Hugo nodded grimly. He worked faster now, his movements sharp and precise. Erica could see the strain on his face as he hacked through the remaining security protocols. The system was fighting back. Alien technology clashing with human ingenuity in a brutal dance. The anomaly, the gravitational pull that had once trapped them, was now their only hope. But they needed to harness it in ways the aliens hadn't expected. And then, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, Hugo tapped the final sequence into the interface, pale, their eyes hollow with exhaustion. Erica Miller stood alone before the shattered viewport, staring out into the endless black of space. The stars twinkled in the distance, distant, indifferent to the battle that had been fought here. The wreckage of the alien fleet floated like forgotten debris, remnants of a force that had underestimated humanity's will to fight. The Acheron was a husk, a skeleton of its former self. There would be no returning to Earth, not in the state the station was in. The communications relay had been wiped out, the engines destroyed, and the life support systems barely functional. They were stranded in the void, with nothing but broken pieces of their once proud vessel and the bodies of their fallen crew to keep them company. But for all the loss, there was something else, something that hung in the air like the first, faint stirrings of a storm. Hope. We survived. Erica muttered under her breath, her voice barely more than a whisper. She had said it before, but now it felt like a promise. To herself, to the crew, to the universe at large. But as the cold silence of space pressed in, something caught her eye. A distant flicker of light. At first, it was nothing more than a glimmer, a faint spark on the edge of the stars. But it grew brighter, moving closer, faster. The motion was deliberate, not like the erratic movements of the alien fleet, but smooth, controlled. Erica's heart skipped a beat as she stepped forward, pressing her hand against the cold glass. The light was growing larger, taking shape. A ship. It wasn't an alien vessel. The outline was too familiar, too human. But who was it? How had they found them? Commander. A voice called from behind, snapping Erica out of her reverie. It was Hugo, his face drawn and weary, but his eyes sharp with an unsettling question. You see that? She didn't answer right away. She just stared, watching the ship approach. It wasn't just any ship, it was sleek, angular, something new. But the markings were unmistakable. The Earth Defense Coalition insignia. A small, pulsing beacon of hope in the vast emptiness of space. We thought they left us for dead, Erica said softly, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Looks like we were wrong. The ship drew closer, its silhouette now unmistakable. It was a new class of cruiser, an experimental ship rumored to be in development before the war had started. A ship that, until now, had been kept under wraps. The Talon, as it neared, Erica felt a strange mix of relief and unease. They had survived, yes. But what did this new arrival mean? Had the Earth Defense Coalition finally come to help, or was this a larger game at play? Hugo stepped up beside her, his voice quiet. What do we do now? Erica didn't answer immediately. She watched as the Talon adjusted its course, its hull gleaming even under the distant starlight, its advanced weapon systems clearly visible along its edges. A rescue mission, a reconnaissance force, or something else entirely? I don't know, she said, her eyes narrowing. But we're about to find out. The ship was almost upon them now, and the Acheron shuddered again, as if the very foundation of the station was holding its breath. A single transmission crackled to life on the command console. It was a voice, distorted, but unmistakably human. Commander Miller, this is Captain Ilara of the Talon. We've been tracking the alien fleet, and your distress signal, We're here to assist. Stand by for docking clearance." A collective breath was held among the crew, but Erica's expression hardened. There was something about this transmission that didn't sit right. The tone was too calm. The phrasing, too precise. She had fought the invaders, seen firsthand how quickly things could spiral out of control. Nothing about this felt like a simple rescue. The Talon was close now, its sleek hull reflected in the shattered remains of the Acheron's windows. It loomed larger, a stark reminder that there were powers at play in the galaxy that humanity might not fully understand. As Erica prepared for what was next, one thought burned in her mind. Surviving the aliens was one thing. Surviving what came next might prove to be a far greater challenge. And as the first docking clamps of the Talon locked into place with a resounding clang, Erica knew this was only the beginning. Done. A moment of complete stillness followed. Erica could feel it, a sudden shift in the air, the temperature dropping as the power surged through the Acheron. The gravity began to change, slowly at first, a subtle shift that only a few noticed. But then, like a lightning strike, the station's internal systems surged, the anomaly's pull suddenly reversing, growing more intense. The gravity field, once a tool for the alien invaders, was now their greatest enemy. The Acheron was pulling them in, drawing them toward the center of the station with increasing force. "Now we fight," Erica said, her voice low and determined. The chaos was immediate. The alien forces, caught off guard by the sudden shift, struggled to maintain their footing as the gravity in the station began to fluctuate wildly. Some of them were thrown against walls. Others were sucked toward the center of the station, their bodies slamming into the metallic floors and ceilings as the gravity manipulated them like ragdolls. It was the opening the crew had been waiting, for Erica and Hugo pushed forward into the heart of the command center, their weapons raised, their determination unshaken. The aliens, still disoriented from the shift, attempted to regroup, but they were no longer in control. The gravity was their enemy now, and their superior technology couldn't save them from its power. Erica moved with calculated precision, firing at the remaining invaders with sharp, quick shots. Each strike felt like a small victory. Each alien that fell brought them closer to victory. Hugo beside her did the same, his face set in a grimace of concentration. The crew, seeing the shift in momentum, rallied together, pushing back the invaders with a ferocity that surprised even them. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about humanity's resilience, their ingenuity in the face of extinction. Erica could see it now. The aliens weren't gods. They weren't invincible. They were just another species, one that had underestimated humanity's will to survive. As the last of the aliens were pulled into the gravitational collapse, their ships began to lose their foothold. One by one, their vessels were torn apart by the station's sudden shift in gravitational force, their alien technology buckling under the pressure. Some tried to escape, but it was too late. The Acheron had become their tomb. In the midst of it all, Erica and Hugo stood, breathing heavily, their eyes scanning the now silent battlefield. The station was still trembling, its systems on the brink of collapse, but for the first time in what felt like days there was silence, a quiet, precious silence. "Did we win?" Hugo asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Erica looked around at the remnants of the Acheron, at the bruised and bloodied crew who had fought tooth and nail for their survival. It wasn't a victory in the traditional sense, not by any means. The station was damaged beyond repair, many lives had been lost, and the threat of the alien invaders had been devastatingly real. But there was a hard truth they had earned the right to say: we survived. But the victory wasn't complete. There was too much destruction, too many questions left unanswered. Why had the aliens come? Was it really just about resources? Or was there something more sinister at play? And what would humanity do now that they had beaten back this first wave? The station's remaining crew gathered in the command center, bruised but not broken. They had survived, yes, but there was more to do. Earth needed to know what had happened. The other colonies needed to be warned. The battle may have been won, but the war, that was still ahead of them. The Acheron was no longer a research station. It was a symbol, a testament to humanity's refusal to bow before the unknown, to the alien fleet They had been nothing more than an insignificant speck in the vastness of the universe. But they had learned something invaluable that day. Humanity would not go quietly into the dark. Erica stood at the viewport, looking out into the cold void of space, where the shattered remains of the alien fleet drifted like broken toys. The gravitational anomaly had collapsed in on itself, taking with it the last of the alien ships. The Acheron had survived, but the cost had been high. Her fingers rested lightly against the cold glass as she watched the stars beyond, her mind heavy with the weight of the future. They had fought to survive, but that wasn't enough. Humanity had to rebuild, to adapt, to prepare for whatever might come next, but they would be ready, no matter what. The silence in the Acheron's command center was deafening. The hum of the station's dying systems was all that remained, a mournful echo of the chaos that had unfolded just hours ago. The walls, once gleaming and polished, were now marred with scorch marks and deep gouges, the scars of a brutal fight for survival. The remaining crew had gathered in what was left of the briefing room, their faces